Got it.
Nice one.
Got that live.
Wow. The reflexes, though.
Yeah, well.
Dear listener, if you weren't wondering what that was, Marie just caught a fly and killed it with her bare hands. That's kind of...
Wax on?
Yeah.
Wax
that's
off.
The kind of tactile and efficient reaction time this gal has. It's very impressive.
Yeah, well.
Meanwhile, I'd be like looking at it, just saying, shh, I got it. And then I'd miss it like 6 times. And then I'd say, welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sport. Hey, we're back. We're back, everyone.
We're back, baby. Back like we never left.
That's right. It's been...
Probably because we didn't.
No. We, of course, I mean, as far as we know, you're just listening to these back to back. So really, like, we've never left.
It's like add to queue. Like, yes, I know. I've already listened to it. I'd like to listen again. I want to listen again. It's so good.
Keep it going.
It's so
good.
Hey,
we appreciate, 1, but 2, if you want to take a break, you can. We won't be offended. We won't be hurt. Take your time. Come back to it.
But certainly keep listening to this one. Please don't stop listening to what you're listening to right now. Keep listening because we've got a great episode.
We do.
We've got a fantastic guest, which we will bring on here shortly, and a fantastic little topic to kind of kick us off and discuss, which I feel like has been a hot topic for a number of years. I think got catapulted and fast forwarded with the COVID time frame we were in of video, providing video for youth sports. And I think video in general, streaming in general, you're hearing all about it right now with streaming services for better or worse.
With actors on strike because of streaming services and writers as well. So it's very much a hot button topic as far as like video and content is concerned, that magic word, which is content, and what place it deserves in the youth sport experience, one, and then how organizations can leverage it appropriately for their own communities.
And I think it's like there's a couple of different avenues, particularly for the youth sports experience. I think the first one you think about is like mom, dad can't always be at every game. They got kids, they got their own priorities and responsibilities. They can't be at every game. So can we provide a really great ability for parents, fans, extended family members, friends to be able to watch their youth athlete participate? So that's one avenue. And I think the other avenue is more around like the training and development side, which we've talked about in the past of like, how are we providing not only really good ways for athletes to grow and develop through coaching, like in-person coaching, but can we also provide, we know kids love to be on devices. So can we provide them with things that will help them, maybe grow their game or learn something about the game that they're playing through video or through, watching themselves play. I know when I was first got introduced to watching myself play, I was like, oh my gosh. That's what I'm doing out there.
It's a big game changer.
It was eye-opening.
Yeah, it's very eye-opening. I never understood like what I was doing wrong in terms of a serve or a forehand until like I actually got to like see myself, and I was like, oh wow, so I get it now. I know what I need to do. I wasn't finishing my forehand, or I wasn't, I was tossing the ball way too high and mistiming my jump. Those sort of things like can really bring a great aha moment for athletes. Yeah. There's a couple things. There's a lot of avenues we can take this. I think just to sort of call out one thing in particular when it comes to video streaming and the youth sport experience, I think is the importance of privacy and the importance of making sure that everyone is on the same page. So you as an organization can certainly call out like, hey, this is an option we're considering to provide, and then put this into a waiver. There are plenty of waiver language options out there, but it's important to make sure that you call it out and have permission from parents to have this available for either the purposes of training or also for streaming for, say the parents that can't make the games, or for grandparents, or for, aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever wants to watch. Because again, like I'd love to tune in and be able to watch my nephews or nieces play a game. So, but the first things first, the parents need to have the ability to give permission for that to happen in the first place. And then secondly, it's a growing expectation now. It's no longer like, this is a cool thing that this club offers. It's does this club offer video streaming in case I can't make it?
It goes into parents' decisions, right? Of where they want their kids to play. Like I want to be able to see my kid. I can't always make the games. We've got, 3-4 kids or other priorities. And it's got to be built in and something organizations are thinking about.
The beauty of it is that like the technology is there. It's no longer like inaccessible or like a huge investment. It's right here. It's your phone. You know what I mean? Like probably what, dear listener, you're listening on right now. So the ability to live stream something is as simple as, there's many apps out there. We will shamelessly plug Sports Engine Play is one of those apps. But the ability to quickly stream a live event and then record it and then save it, watch it back from a training purpose or for the purposes of giving to parents to watch again or watch live is huge. It is an expectation now, less than, I guess, added benefit of a club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this will be my last thing I'll say on it. And then we'll bring on the reason probably most people decided to, press play here today. But if I may take the mic, as I always will. Thank you, Simon.
Sorry.
It is, and it starts with, if we're talking from like an organization perspective, we've had this conversation a number of times. Like it always has to start with like, what's your goal as an organization, or what's your mission and values as an organization? More times than not, through organizations that I know you've talked to, I've talked to, that, we help at Sports Engine, is like, I want to give my members the best experience. I want them to like love being a part of my organization, love the environment I create, love the, experience that I can give to not only my athletes, but the coaches and all that stuff. And I think video in particular checks all of those boxes at being able to provide that in an affordable way or at no cost at all to your members for parts of it. It's huge. And there are options out in the marketplace today. So we would, like Simon said, we're very biased. So check out Sports and Play. However, there are a ton of other options depending on what you as an organization want, right? What are your goals? And you're going to find a solution out there that's going to work for you. And that is what I have to say about that.
I'll add one more thing on it. We'll wrap this up for sure and then hop right into our guest. But with the mindset of like, sort of like, this is an expectation now, firsthand experience, have seen this across the board, whether it's sport agnostic. Like this is something that is requested across soccer, across hockey, across, lacrosse, across football, across basketball, and even into like, when we talk about studio or class-based organizations, when we talk about dance, we talk about gymnastics, when we talk about things that, if you're going to drop off your kid for a particular like class or instruction session, these can be like live streamed and be sent to just the parents. Like this is also an expectation across the software industry to have these recorded sessions or video sessions for parents to tune in on. Much like, and maybe this is top of mind for me, but like daycare, being able to just like peek in and see how my kid is doing.
I will say, when I drop my dog off for daycare, they even have a little live streaming for your dog.
But doesn't that make a difference?
So
like, doesn't that kind of make a decision for you of like where you want to drop off your dog?
And I'm like, this is legit.
Yeah, it's huge. So let's do this. We'll drop all the links as far as like waivers and language. That's going to be great for organizations to just leverage on their own. They can feel free to use that for any upcoming registrations. We'll also include some links to Sports Engine Play because it's a great option. One of the options, but a great option nonetheless.
So we've heard.
Yeah, so we've heard. And then other considerations when it comes to video too, we'll make sure to drop into the show notes.
Absolutely. And we've got a ton. Obviously, like many, people in the industry and other providers have a ton of resources to help you figure out what's best for you. But we've got a all-star guest that's going to come on here and talk about how you can use video to help amplify your organization on social media, to help yourself grow your brand, to help provide your athletes with access to, images and videos from themselves. NIL, that's a thing, folks. It's not going away. You want to provide that to your members and to your athletes. We're going to talk to our amazing guest, Bri Lewerke, in just a few moments. So with that, Simon, shall we?
We shall.
All right, folks, today is the day. You may have thought that we've had some impressive talent on the podcast before, of the likes, we got Rory McIlroy on, we had Chad Greenway, the Savannah Bananas, but listen, no one more impressive than our guest today. Bri Lewerke is currently a social media manager at Spotify, where she works to promote various different podcasts, which is funny because here we are in a podcast. So we'll talk about that after the show. Bri not only has an impressive social media resume, she is also an extremely talented sports photographer doing work for Just Women's Sports, the Nike UIBL circuit, and various other professional sports teams and events. We will dive into the wealth of knowledge that Bri has to offer throughout the show. But while she's not kicking ass in her various day jobs, you can likely find her hanging out with her dog Nova, watching the WNBA. We're working on making her a soccer fan, more to come there. We're enjoying a true crime podcast. So Bri is not only a former coworker of Simon and I, but she's also one of my dearest friends, so it's going to be a fun day on the podcast. Dear listener, prepare yourself. Bri, welcome to the show.
Marie, Simon, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. That was an incredible intro. I will certainly not live up to Rory McIlroy or Chad Greenway, but I will try my best.
Don't know. Don't sell yourself short. Like, you don't
just
know
get
this
a
yet.
thick Northern Irish accent and we'll go from there.
Yes. That's all it takes.
Yeah. That's all
be
it really
takes. Be an immediate expert in NIL deals, and we're halfway there.
Raise a D1 caliber athlete and you're good.
So I basically failed already.
Mm-hmm. It appears so, actually.
First and foremost, a question that no one could possibly see coming. Bri, could you tell us about your youth sport experience?
I can. So I grew up playing many sports. I actually did play soccer early on, but it was a little bit too much running for me. That was one of the first sports I played.
The one drawback.
Yeah, a lot of cardio. And then I started playing basketball, and I remember like the first basketball shot I ever made, I celebrated it as if it was a soccer goal in which your team comes around you. Like, you take a while to celebrate a soccer goal you don't do the same when you score a basket. So I'm down there like, let's go everybody. And they're like, keep going.
Defense.
So I had an adjustment there, but I did end up falling in love with basketball. I started playing on a travel team when I was in 4th grade and played that throughout middle school. I also was on a softball travel team where I was the pitcher, which was horrible. I hated pitching in softball. There was so much pressure. I don't even know how I ended up getting that position. And then in high school, I ended up playing softball, volleyball, and basketball. So it's been a big part of my life throughout growing up in regards to playing. My brother also played travel baseball and basketball, and I traveled around to all of his events because I was like obsessed with watching youth sports. I would go to the baseball diamonds all the time in my town. So like from a playing perspective, sports has always been part of my life. And then I wasn't good enough to play in college like Marie over here was. Double college athlete, which is just insane. But I played like intramurals and stuff throughout college, but then I ended up back in youth sports when I started working at Sports Engine out of college, actually. And so I got kind of like the career experience in youth sports. So I really went from playing youth sports to working in it, which was just very unplanned, but it's been amazing to like always keep sports as part of my life because it's just been so much fun throughout the years.
Yeah, I'm always curious of people who work at Sports Engine, but there's obviously a number of other, youth sports companies, and like how I feel like when I started, you remember your youth sports experience in a certain way. And then you kind of like, when you start working in the industry, you get the other side of it and how much actually like goes into making youth sports happen. Like you just kind of show up at the field and you're play soccer for 45 minutes and then you go home. But like the amount of work and things that go into like just getting you to that place and having that be something that you can do is just like, it's crazy. And obviously why we started the podcast to talk about all of that. But did your perspective of like starting to work in youth sports, like, did you ever look back on your own experience? Like, damn, that's a lot of stuff that had to go into all of that.
1000%. That is such a great point. I think, and I have to imagine your perspective changes even more when you're a parent, but like when you're a parent and someone who works in youth sports and played, I can't even imagine like the different perspectives that you get. For me, when I started, it was exactly that. It was show up to the field, show up to the hotel. There's somehow going to be snacks. There's somehow going to be carpooling and somebody to coordinate you getting home. And like, never thought about it. Never thought about the amount of work that my parents put into it, like transparently, which like I am so appreciative of now, because like, if I think about a future with me having kids, I'm like, oh, where does that like time come from to be able to like make this work? Like, I feel like I already am so busy, and just knowing the amount of hours and like time off work and everything that my parents specifically put into it was just like really amazing perspective. And I'm just like so appreciative now of like them making that happen for me, because that some parents can't, and some families can't make it work. And they made it work despite having like 2 full-time jobs. So from that perspective, I'm so grateful, but also for like coaches and team admins and like everybody who a lot of it is volunteer work.
Yeah.
Everybody who took the time to make it happened. I mean, sports like completely shaped my life and my friendships and who I am today, and honestly, probably where I work. And so for everybody, like so many people, from parents to coaches to admins to like even teammates and their parents and everything, like for the amount of hours and contribution, I'm just very grateful. But yeah, once I started working in youth sports, I was like, first of all, I was like, thank goodness for Sports Engine. I mean, back then it was like paper and like emails on like AOL.com. So like just such a difference now in like organizing teams and making it a little bit more easy to do all this. But yeah, just very grateful, and definitely puts things into perspective.
It's something that I think, doesn't get overlooked, I think, on the podcast, where we're all very appreciative, I think, on our end. But I think, just for every parent out there, here's a treat for you. I want you to take just like this timestamp here, and I need you to go and find your kids, and I need you to play this segment. All of us are now just going to be shouting into our microphones, hey, kids, thank your parents. Thank your parents.
Thank you
for doing this for you.
Thank your parents.
Do it.
Give them a hug.
Because they're providing you an opportunity to play a sport that they loved. And it's not something that a lot of people want to do, and not something that people will do for their kids. And they're doing it out of love, out of for you, so you can experience the same thing that they did.
Yep.
Thank them. Thank your parents. Thank the admins. Thank your coaches. Thank the person that brought cookies at halftime, even though that probably gave you a side ache. Doesn't matter. They still did that for you.
Yep.
Now, sorry, that rant's over. But point is, it's certainly something that, when we grow up, it's something we overlook. But dang, yeah, Gary, my youth soccer coach, certainly put in a lot of hours to like make this happen, and it doesn't get lost. Certainly from our day-to-days, where I just had a call with a co-owner of a cheer organization who's a mom of 4, has very little time as it is, but she's doing it in the large part because she loves cheer, and her daughter's a part of it, and she gets to provide that opportunity for others. That's where she gets her energy from. And it provides a lot of energy to see how much joy can be had.
We mentioned that you worked with us at Sports Engine, but you're no longer with us, which is exciting, though, that you've taken so many, steps past that. And I want to talk briefly, because I think it's an interesting story of how you went from Sports Engine to Spotify, which I'm sure many people are probably listening to this on Spotify. So that's kind of fun. Yeah. But it's well known. But what kind of happened, or how did you go from Sports Engine to Spotify?
Such a funny journey, because I actually, to backtrack a little bit, I joined Sports Engine out of college in 2016. And at the time it was called Sport Engine. And within about 8 weeks of me joining, it got acquired by NBC Sports. And I ended up working there for 5 years, loved it, kind of moved throughout content creation / marketing / social. And then I got offered a job at a startup, which was called Locker Room at the time. And if you're listening to a podcast, then you might be familiar with the days of live audio, which was like Clubhouse specifically. And now Twitter Spaces is obviously in the live audio space. So this was a startup called Locker Room. There were 13 employees. I was employee number 13. And it was a small app that was very much like Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, but it was strictly sports focused. And so that aligned really well with me, because I love talking about sports. I love sports. And I thought that at the time, this live audio niche would be like successful. Of course, it was extremely successful then because of COVID. And then like many other things, once COVID stopped, things shifted a little bit.
Very quickly, for our moms who probably don't know what live audio is, it's basically like a chat room, but you're like chatting on audio. So it's like a big shared phone call almost, but you're doing it online.
Yeah.
Is my best way of describing it.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct. Or it's very similar to like a live podcast. It's as though you were listening to the discussion between us, but live, like you could tune in live.
And you can interact and stuff,
and
right?
Interact.
Sometimes.
Yep, with like a chat or like emojis or whatever. And it's more of an interactive way to listen to conversations. So I would just call it like an interactive podcast. So yeah, which obviously at the time fit really well in the sports world, because people weren't attending sports as much. So they wanted to have this like community feel outside of the arena. And so I joined in February of 2021. I joined Locker Room. And again, this was like the second job I had ever started for the first time. And within 6 weeks, it got acquired by Spotify. So both the jobs that I started in my career have been acquired.
So if you're looking to be acquired, if you've got a company.
I was going to say, she's got the golden touch.
I don't know what it is,
bad enough.
But if you are an investor, keep an eye on my career path, because
you might want to place your bets there.
Right. So yeah, so it got acquired. I had started at Locker Room as the social media content lead. And once we got acquired and I went to Spotify, I joined the social team at Spotify. And for the first like year and a half, I was doing live audio. And then Spotify shifted away from like the live audio approach. And so since last October, I have been on the podcast social team at Spotify, which has been amazing. If I had like applied for Spotify instead of getting acquired and joining, I would have applied for like the podcast side of things, because I love listening to podcasts. For the Love of Sport has to be my favorite.
I mean,
not a paid advertisement.
Nope, not sponsored.
It's authentic.
It is.
Thank you, Bri. Thank you very much.
Yes. And so I love this podcast, but I just love listening to podcasts in general. And so it was just a really perfect fit. And I am very grateful that I ended up at Spotify and on the podcast side. But yeah, it's definitely been quite a journey.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's obviously we're asking a lot of questions around like social media and all of that sort of stuff. And it's a very popular topic in the youth sports world now with NIL, and just like the growing number of like the kids who are playing youth sports now are so engulfed in social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a part of their life, it's interesting for us because I feel like we were at the tail end of that, where we were kind of into social media, but like it wasn't really a thing for us when we were growing up. So it's hard to like wrap your head around that. So maybe just with like all of your experience and what you've seen and everything that you've done in the social media space, what would you say for, maybe this is two-part question, for parents who are listening, who their kids are on social media and wanting to use it to like promote themselves and create content and do all that sort of stuff, but also around like youth sports organizations whose social media is going to become a big part of how they promote themselves and engage with their members and how they share information out, like
recruit.
Maybe we could talk about, recruit if you're a high level organization. So I don't know, there's two questions there and you can take either one first, but if you have any thoughts just around those two avenues.
Just generally to answer both, like I just think social media is going to continue to grow and be an even bigger part of day-to-day life. And kids are going to be aware of social media at even younger ages than they are now. I know that, kids have iPads and stuff at such young ages now, and they're going to start hearing about TikTok specifically a lot younger. I feel like in our day and age, like I got my first phone in middle school. I wasn't even on a social media site until I was in high school at some point, which that landscape has changed so drastically. So for the parent side of things, I want to caveat, I am not a parent. So I am like, when it comes to parental advice, I am not your girl. But when it comes to social media advice, I think, as everybody knows, social media can be an incredible thing. It can build up community, a sense of community. It can connect you with other people who have similar interests or that you might know of in your community who plays a sport, but that brings like a deeper connection. And I just, like, my number one thing I love about social media is the community that can come from it. And there are also amazing things where you can, like even for when I was working at Sports Engine, I would consistently share like user generated content of these really amazing kids doing amazing things in youth sports that were like very inspiring and you often see highlights of the best NBA players or WNBA players or soccer players, but there is something to be said when you're seeing someone who looks like you and is your age playing sports and being involved and being active and doing these really fun and exciting things. So I think that has such a positive angle. And I really know that there's so much negative sentiment around social media, but I do think there is so much positive to be found from it, especially when it's used right.
That's a really good point. I feel like a lot of times in youth sports, you're always like, or just youth in general, you're like, social media, bad, not good. But it's also like, with anything, if it's used in the right way and like you're in the right places and you have the right guardrails in place, like it can be used to like inspire people or get kids more active or to see themselves doing something that they maybe would have never tried if they hadn't seen someone else doing it. So that's a very inspiring point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Marie. That's exactly it. What you said, like with guardrails, there's just so many considerations you need to be like putting in place. I know a lot of parents will kind of run their their kids' social media accounts and manage them, which I just think is so important. I don't think a kid should be just like going out there on their own from like age 5. Like, but I do think there are so many positives to be found with it. And it's also just about the way that you like teach it and frame it to your kids. So yeah, so there's a lot of positive things that can be found on social, that can be created through social media. And it's also good to like work with kids from a young age to understand what social media is and to understand what's negative about it, what to be aware of when using social media, but also what's positive about it. Because I think then when they come in to an age where they're going to take it on their own, they're more informed than kind of like, it's just so overwhelming. There's so much content. There's so much to see. So it's like having the awareness as you head into it.
No, it's a good note. Like be the training wheels for your kids when they start or when they want to like, whatever, like control it. Like let them drive what they want to like post about or what they want to like share. Like be the training wheels, like say, okay, sure, we can do that. And let's write a post and let's do this. I mean, this is all really good notes. And then when they get to a certain point, then you can take the training wheels off because you have the established trust and they have the established lessons of like, okay, so this is what I should do.
Exactly. And they don't see it as this taboo thing because if you're teaching them that, they're going to want it more and they're going to want to find those places of the internet versus like cultivating positive things and finding positive content. And like, it's really about, there's so many things out there, but it's really about like teaching what is the good part and what like is to be avoided or to be aware of at least. And then on like the other side of your question with youth sports organizations and stuff, that there is also a negative to that, but it's much smaller. You guys need to be on social media is my opinion. It is, of course, there's still, you could deal with trolls or you could deal with running across negative content as a youth sports organization, like admin or whatever the case. But if you're not on social media right now, it all honestly, in my mind, puts a little bit less like trust into like the organization. Like it's just such a great like view into who the organization is, what they do. There's only so much that you can find upon like a website search or a Google search, and social is just so organic. So I think it just really provides a lens that you can't find anywhere else. And for somebody like a parent or even a kid, depending on the age, to like look at this like social media account of the organization and see like, hey, this is what they do. This is the type of people that they surround themselves with or have on the teams. And this is how they highlight their athletes, or this is how they highlight their volunteers, even as a parent, or their coaches or whatever the case. Like that is such a positive thing to see as somebody who's like considering joining or who is considering putting their kids into youth sports, whatever the case.
Exactly.
It's just such an organic view. And it's, of course, I realize that it's a job. It's my full-time job. I know that it's not just like start it up and success followers. And if it was that easy, then everyone would be doing it way more than they are now. But it's a time commitment, which I realize is hard. I realize that social media is hard in general. It's hard to know what to post, how to post it sometimes. Is it a reel? Is it a photo carousel? Is it a TikTok video? Is it like, there's so many nuances to this. And I understand that it's hard, but I genuinely think like the time and effort is worth it for organizations just because of that more organic, authentic view of the organization that you really can't find anywhere else.
You get to be you can create an extension of your organization online. That's not just a website, because I can almost guarantee from our experiences that when parents are looking for places of where they want to play, or if they hear like, oh, you want to try, Minnesota Strikers, cool. Guess what the first places that you're going to be looking are? You might be looking online, but you're also looking at Instagram. You're looking at Facebook. You're looking at their socials. You're looking at the past history. You're looking at kids. You're looking at, what's their vibe? What are they about? What do they enjoy? It's a great extension of your brand and of your organization. And a great way to communicate that continually. And the other thing is patience. I think that's what I heard too from you, is that does not happen overnight. It takes just a large time investment. And just to say like, it's never like I posted it, I'm done now. That's good for a year.
Yep.
I feel like that's such an important piece. And like I a lot of times you'll see it, and you used to see it in websites, because websites were kind of like, when they were new, they're essentially like social media, right? It's like,
yep.
Yeah.
You got to have a website because you got to show your brand. You got to show everything you're about. And you still do, right? To an extent, that's where the bulk of your organization information is. But I do think it's like, you have to consistently do it. You know, you see so many, not just even talking about youth sports organizations, who will post like twice in a month, and then they won't post again for another 6 months. And then they're like, why aren't we seeing success, or why aren't we getting more engagement? And it is like, you have to just consistently continue to do it over and over and over again. And eventually you'll either gradually increase your engagement, or who knows, you might get lucky and something will happen where, you know, you get a big spark. But I don't know. I feel like that resonates too, Simon, for us. Like this podcast, it's the same thing, right? Like you see all these big podcasts that you're like, oh, you think they just like sprouted up overnight. And it's like, it takes work and consistency. And like every time you do it, it has to just like, got to believe it's going to get a little better every time.
Yeah, and it has. I mean, just let's take a small moment. Let's give ourselves a small high five here.
Yes.
Little steps.
Awesome.
Repeated every single day.
But yeah, I mean, it is hard though. And like when I was at the soccer club I used to work at and coach at, I helped on the social side too. And we were a club that was big and like had full-time staff, and it was still hard to prioritize some of these things. But I think it just shows like your commitment to engaging with like your community, your members, you're highlighting the kids. Like it's so cool when all like the kids love seeing themselves on social media if they're like posted by like your organization. It's so cool for them. And it's also cool, like you can highlight your best teams who are winning tournaments, but you can also highlight like any team and just take fun pictures at their games. Like I almost think that's more impactful than always seeing the highlights and the times you win the tournaments and stuff like that.
Exactly. Marie, you just get it.
Yeah.
You guys both get it. That's so refreshing to hear. You guys both understand it. You even summed it up better than I did, but I could not agree more. And the nice thing about social is now it's a bit more lo-fi. We consistently use Spotify now because it kind of went through this phase of like aesthetic and graphics and everything has to look so perfect.
Yeah, it's more like organic, like just like even like videos you see are just like on camera, on phones.
So much content.
They're not edited down. It's just like a lot more accessible, which actually leads to my next question. And maybe you kind of answered it there, but if people are like, yeah, it'd be great to have some type of like branding or tools that I can use that are free, do you have any that you recommend or that you guys use right out of the gates that people could download and just start messing around with?
Yes. Fantastic question. Canva. We know and love Canva. For those of you who don't know and love Canva, think of it as, it's a website. Think of it as Photoshop, but much more simplified. Canva does have a free version. There is a paid version as well, which is still relatively inexpensive for what you get out of it. But Canva is basically a way to create social media posts. There's also things you can create: flyers, you can create brochures, you can create presentations, you can even create like designed emails to like send out, stuff like that. Like there is a lot of templates on Canva to use, but I would say it's mainly used for social media purposes. And they have templates. They have video templates, GIF or GIF. I don't know which one you guys are.
Oh, we're going to find out.
You're about to learn today.
I'm a GIF gal, so breaking news.
Spoiler.
GIF templates. They have a lot of different, basically elements, like anything you need for a simple social media post you can find on Canva. I would highly recommend for anybody using or like hoping for something that's free / inexpensive and easy to use, because for me, Canva wasn't a thing, or at least I hadn't discovered it yet when I was starting out in social media, and I had to learn Photoshop. And the amount of hours I spent on YouTube tutorials, it's not for beginners. It's not something that you can just jump in and understand it. It takes a ton of time and watching like tutorials and all this stuff. So I just honestly wouldn't recommend using like Adobe products to start out. Now with AI, it might become a little easier, but we're not going to get into that. So Canva even has an AI tool now as well, which is interesting. But Canva for social media is huge. And then outside of that, like we might be talking about camera and photography stuff later, but like use your phone to create photography and videos. So often we are even on Spotify social, we're going to stuff and filming it with our phones because that's just how far our phones have advanced nowadays.
Yeah.
And people on social media have really, like I talked about, like the shift, like they don't want to see this perfectly polished stuff anymore. They want to see authentic, organic, lo-fi content that feels relatable and like something that isn't like unattainable for somebody else to create or for them to see in their day-to-day life.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because there's the amount of time I see like a DSL camera. I don't even know if that's the right 3 letters, by the way, but like one of the very fancy cameras that are just like following like college football players around or basketball players. I'm like, you guys they keep making the cameras better. Like, just take advantage of it. It's there. It's in your pocket. And I think there's also a lot of tools out there too. And I mean, we don't do this very often, but there are platforms that have social media integrations. They have these integrations with Instagram, with Twitter, with Facebook for a reason, because it's an important aspect of growing your brand. So I know for us and many other U Sport platforms out there, but for the ones that we know about, Sports Engine and Sports Engine Motion, there are direct integrations with Instagram that can be used with Facebook, with your Google Business, and then making sure that you can actually have all those things tied together and post from one singular place, which I know can certainly help. But on top of that, another thing that I think organizations have top of mind is that's all well and good, but how do I like promote? How do I like what do I post? Like how do I do?
How do you go viral, Bri? Tell us.
Do I just post a selfie of me on a field going, "Hey, sports are happening," or like how do I go viral? Like that's the question there, Bri. Because spoiler alert, everyone, not even spoiler alert, but at this time of recording, Bri has gone viral on SportsCenter on their Instagram, their Twitter, and I think you've gone viral like multiple times now.
Correct.
There's been a couple. It's really, if there was a clear-cut answer to going viral, we'd all be doing it, right? For the Love of Sport would be getting 100,000 views on all their posts. It would be
who's to say we don't?
Stop being humble and tell us how it's done, Bri.
It's
our hundreds are valued at millions in our hearts.
There you go.
That's true.
No, there's no key to success. There's no secret answer that people like me are holding in. I honestly am just as surprised as everybody else to see stuff like that of mine go on SportsCenter. So I think a couple of things. Number one, going viral actually doesn't have as much success for a brand as you would think it does. While it's great to get a lot of eyes in regards to like impressions on maybe your brand logo or your brand name or whatever the case, like that's great. It's not very sticky. It's often not a lot of followers you gain from virality. Not a ton of engagement in regards to like engagement rate. And that's like comments, like shares, etc. And so I think a couple of things: don't ever focus on just going viral, or don't even focus on followers, which I know is very hard. But right now, 200 followers is engaged and actively excited to see your content is going to be so much more valuable than 20,000 followers who are not in the youth sports community or are not even in your community and state. There's a lot of value in having a small engaged community versus a large unengaged following. And I think that's hard for some people to grasp, because follower numbers to some people translate to more likes, more signups, more money. And that's not always how it works. Having a highly engaged audience is the most important. And how to build something like that is be authentic. I would focus on what your brand's values and mission and goals are, and think, how do I translate these goals and these values into what we're posting on social media, whether that's getting more people involved in youth sports. So how do you make your organization on social media be a welcoming, community-focused organization by showing team events or honoring a coach who's been there for 10 years, or showcasing the new rookie or the new kid who joined the team and 3 facts about him. Just basically focusing on your brand as a whole and your goals and what you want to do for your brand, and then bringing that down to the social media level. And again, it doesn't have to be in this beautiful format or aesthetically looking like it was professionally done by a social agency, or it doesn't have to have the most amazing video work where they're the background is blurred and the person is on the field. Like, it's never, just make it authentic and make it simple and do what you can with your resources. Like, honestly, start there, because maybe that will build it up to like more people are wanting to follow you and see your content. So you know that you have to continue putting resources into it or whatever the case, but start small and do what you can with what you have. It's not easy. Not everybody can post and create content frequently. The only thing I would advise against is like starting and quitting, because I think one thing when I look at like a brand's account and I see they haven't posted since 2017, I'm like, okay, are they either like quitting and don't care about social media and that community?
They're not around anymore?
Are they not around anymore? That's literally things that will go like, we'll look at small startups or something. And if they haven't posted, I'm like, well, they must've failed, but which isn't always the case. It just like, so your social media presence can matter a lot when it comes to like the overall like sentiment or like even like the outside perspective of what your organization is. So that was very long-winded, and I hope there was sense in there, but
definitely some good stuff in there for sure.
Yeah. I do think the other piece too of like, obviously we asked the question with a little bit of like sarcasm behind it. Like, obviously there's no answer to that. I think you hit on the points of like consistency, be authentic, but I also think there is some value of also understanding for your sport or in your community a relevancy of like what's going on in the community, what's going on culturally. Like a lot of the times the stuff you post are very relevant in like the cultural conversation. Like the last one, the Denver Nuggets one, you posted about, I'm going to say his name wrong, Nikola Jokic.
Yep, close.
Jokic. Anyways, you posted about things that are happening. So it's something that is going to resonate with people because it's top of mind for a lot of people. So like if you're an organization and it's, you know, around a holiday or it's around a big community event, can you tie your brand and your organization to what's happening locally is probably going to help you at least attract more eyeballs than if you were just posting random ad hoc things that weren't really relevant to what's happening at that specific time. Yes, no, I don't really know, but I think that would help.
No, Marie, you're exactly right. I love that call out. Like basically my example for like those who don't know, to make it clear and kind of like draw the connection back, is Jokic, who was a 2-time MVP the past 2 years on the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets have never won an NBA championship, and they just won it earlier this week. And there's a photo